Well, this is an interesting one. Obviously, Tom Henderson, the journalist, has established himself as kind of like the number one authority on Sony leaks. Whether it's the handheld PlayStation that turned into the PlayStation Portal, PS5 Pro, cloud server details, I think pretty much everything that he's quote unquote leaked, or rather reported from somebody who did leak it, has actually turned out to be full on. And article arrived yesterday questioning whether the PlayStation 5 Pro will actually launch in 2024 or whether it will slip to 2025. And there is something within this article I think we've got to point out. The second paragraph. Admittedly, the more recent discussions about the PS5 Pro missing its holiday 2024 release have been fueled by my own tweet. Well, this is the thing. When you establish yourself as the number one source for Sony hardware leaks and you make any kind of comment, it's going to be picked up on and seized upon as ground truth. But it looks as though he's trying to possibly play it down, or at least share the details that he does have about the timing, right, John?
Yeah, indeed. So I guess nothing had really happened or changed in the space for a while, and Sony's been very quiet, obviously. So this kind of feels like it came out of nowhere, but it's sort of just like a yeah, as far as I know, nothing's changed kind of story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And based on what we've heard as well from various developers, like they have targets sort of like for this fall, where I guess was it like September or something, where it's like you're supposed like, yeah, you should have like a cutoff date for like everything past this point needs to support the PS5 Pro.
Yeah.
You've got to take advantage of these features to some degree. I, for one, do still think that it's very likely that it will ship this year. I think the reason we haven't seen anything from them yet probably stems more from not wanting to cannibalize sales of the current PlayStation 5, right? If you announce like, oh, an updated model of your console is coming 6 months later, that could potentially have a very negative effect on sales of that current machine. Nintendo and Sony both typically work this way, where they sort of announce the hardware and then very shortly after it's released, right?
Yep.
The one exception I can think to this was when Microsoft revealed the Xbox One X as the Scorpio project, if you remember.
Yeah,
where they kind of
that for a long time.
But I think that's probably just down to the poor performance of Xbox One as like a, right? Where it's like, okay, guys, we got something coming. We heard you, and sort of build the excitement there. Where here, I don't think they need to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thoughts, Alex?
Yeah, based upon also all the things that Tom's writing here, I also think due to the kind of empty schedule beyond Astrobot, I think Sony really could use some sort of pick-me-up towards the later half of the year. And new hardware plus patches for games and things like that. I think that's a way to revitalize interest in the brand after people are kind of like, right now, they're like, Sony's not putting out a lot of stuff and we got to wait for the next. I mean, we don't have, some of the developers haven't announced things in a long time, like Sony Bend or Sucker Punch. We haven't heard from them in a while. But I think we're still, as a result of that, since there's a software slump, pushing a new hardware SKU right around that time seems really reasonable to me. And I think it aligns with everything we've heard elsewhere, as well as with Tom's reporting on here. Though I do find it very funny how this is like all self-referential reporting. There's only so much you can do there. But it's like, it's like I reported last year on this and I'm reporting again on what I reported on. And there was a line in here that I quoted earlier. Documents sent to me in mid-2023 showed the PlayStation 5 Pro release date, which, if memory serves me correctly, was in the latter half of November 2024. Either these documents went missing between then and now, or it's just a funny turn of phrase, but it is very self-referential reporting that I found very humorous.
There's an argument that there's not going to be any sort of quote unquote first party bangers to accompany the launch. But, I'm looking back now to 2016 when the PS4 Pro launched and there wasn't really a massive Sony first party juggernaut.
Wait, wasn't there Knack 2? around that time.
Yeah, there was admittedly The Last Guardian, but that came out in December after
Right.
the PS4 Pro, and so I don't think the fact that there's not a major first party title is anything to actually stop the release of the hardware. What it does
Right.
mean is that you can go back to the existing games that are actually they can be kind of renewed
Right.
to a certain degree by having 5 Pro patches. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's a reason to delay it. And it just, it seems to me here that this article is mostly about trying to clarify what may actually happen with actual sourced materials, as opposed to, maybe trying to sort of dampen the sort of delay panic
Yeah.
that a seemingly innocuous tweet has caused.
That's probably one of the reasons the story was made, because we've heard it's been radio silence from Sony, and since Tom was the source of these leaks originally, he's probably sort of like trying to calm some fears and be like, no, I'm right, I swear, that kind of thing.
The timeline is looking incredibly similar to 4 Pro.
It is, yeah, very
Basically,
much.
developer details sort of cropped up around GDC time in 2016 and 5 Pro GDC time this year. An event in September does seem likely if there's a requirement for all games shipped after a certain point in September to support the 5 Pro, and then you've got a couple of months of ramping up of PR until the thing comes out. And so I'm all in on it. I think it's probably going to happen. What can I say?
I could see them
signs are
also.
there.
I could see them revealing at least another big game alongside this. This feels like a great opportunity to showcase, say, Ghost of Tsushima 2, for instance, because
Right.
it is a big popular game. So not only would people be paying attention for that, that would also get eyes on the PS5 Pro, right? So it would
Right,
be
I
kind of a
get what you're
win-win.
saying. So it wouldn't actually be alongside the launch.
Correct. I don't necessarily think it would release with the system, but I think they could reveal it with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, here's what you can do with the system, and Sucker Punch has been working with it, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's kind of what they did with the 4 Pro. They had that launch event in New York that I went to, and we actually got to see Marvel Spider-Man, the OG, running
Right.
on PS4 Pro. And, Mark Cerny was talking about HDR and 4K, and lo and behold, you see that within the sizzle reel, and it's looking suitably 4K-like. And that was great. So maybe there could be something like that happening.
Right.
I think nothing has really changed here. I think it's still likely to happen in 2024. I'm really looking forward to it. And I still think the existing challenges remain, which is, how do you market a machine that's going to look really good at 4K when you've kind of already got one? That's the challenge,
Yeah.
right?
That's
How do you market this one without putting down the old one?
Yeah,
as well?
Absolutely, yeah. I guess the argument is that, it is exactly kind of the sub argument that was put forth for PS4 Pro was, even if you've still got a 1080p screen, you're going to reap the benefits through, the improved performance, the super sampling,
Right.
etc., etc., etc. But I think they're going to need to hone in on that a bit more for this one, with the absence of any sort of major game-changing display technology.
Yeah.
If they do an
Yeah.
8K demo,
Oh,
I'm
gonna
think it's a
yawn.
good move.
I can see it. Like, the latest generation of Unreal Engine presents unique challenges for developers that requires major sacrifices on current generation consoles, such as the PlayStation 5, where often we see resolutions as low as 720p in use with AMD's FSR 2.0. Thanks to the PlayStation 5 Professional, now we have PSSR, and we're able to enjoy these games at much higher resolutions.
the Chat GPT version of this. That's the feel. Yeah.
That does sound like that, even though it was not.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm still intrigued about the cell, how you sell this to.
The cell processor.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, because with the last presentation, there was I think it was really obvious just in side by sides. You could just show like the 1080p versus the 4K, and it's like a massively larger image, regardless of how it's constructed, and that just appeals to people's brains. It's a bigger image with more detail. But here,
More
like
image.
the initial sell of the PS5 is 4K or 8K,
But it wasn't really.
yeah, and then it's also ray tracing and 60 FPS, but it's like that's what this box is supposed to do. So I'm still very curious about how they phrase this all. I think a couple demos would be very useful. I also think like last time, a couple third-party demos would also be very useful. So not just the Sony stuff. Like last time it was something of the Tomb Raider. What's that one?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, everything's all
Rise
about
of the
machine
Tomb Raider.
learning at the
Rise.
moment. I'd love to see some sort of demo of machine learning that isn't upscaling. I mean, they've got some really capable AI hardware in there. If they can do something different with it, I'd be quite interested to see that.